Hey everyone, welcome back for another deep dive. You ready to get into some thought-provoking stuff today?
Always.
Awesome. All right, so we're going to be talking about artificial intelligence and authoritarianism today.
Ooh, interesting combo.
Yeah, and kind of what that means for the future of truth and knowledge.
Mm.
Like, how do we even know what's real anymore?
Right, with AI getting so good at faking things.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So to help us unpack all of this, we've got a few different sources.
Yeah.
We've got some excerpts from reports on AI ethics,
Mm-hmm.
algorithmic transparency, and even this kind of note I found that was urging us to look at how AI could be used for control by governments and people in power.
Oh, wow. That sounds a little ominous.
Yeah, it is a little bit unsettling. But we're also going to be looking at all of this through the lens of books that I know you've read. And
Yes.
I've read, and it's been generating a lot of buzz. It's called The Age of AI and Our Human Future.
Great book.
Such a good book. And it's by Kissinger,
Oh, wow.
Schmidt, and Huttenlocher.
What a power trio.
I know, right? It's like they assembled a dream team to tackle this topic.
Yeah.
You've got Kissinger, the diplomat,
Yeah.
Schmidt, the tech giant from Google, and then Huttenlocher, the computer science brain.
Yeah. Their combined expertise is really what makes that book so unique.
Totally.
And I think the main point that they're making in the book is that AI is not just like an incremental upgrade. It is a total game changer.
Yeah.
It's going to impact everything.
Everything.
From how we make decisions as individuals to how countries wield power on the global stage.
It's true. And one of the things that really struck me when I was reading this book was this idea that AI could fundamentally change what we even consider to be true.
Oh, yeah,
Could
absolutely.
you elaborate on that a bit?
So think about deepfakes, for example.
Okay.
AI-generated videos that are basically indistinguishable from real life,
Yeah. And getting better
getting so much better.
all the time.
Like every day. So imagine an authoritarian government using that technology to discredit their opponents or fabricate evidence or even stage entire events to manipulate public opinion.
That's scary.
It's really scary because it's like, if you can't even trust what you see with your own eyes, then how can you possibly form informed opinions?
Yeah. And what does that do to our ability to have meaningful debate and make decisions as a society
Yeah.
if we don't even have a shared reality anymore?
Exactly. And the book actually goes even deeper than that and argues that AI could also erode trust in traditional sources of knowledge. Like, think about experts and institutions
Right.
that we've relied on for information in the past.
And we're already kind of seeing that happen a little bit with the spread of misinformation online.
Totally.
But with AI, it's like that on steroids.
Yeah, it's going to be so much harder to separate fact from fiction.
So it's not just about individual videos or pieces of content being fake. It's like
Yeah.
AI could create this entirely distorted reality that people
Exactly.
start to believe.
It becomes almost impossible to know what's real and what's not.
And especially when you consider that authoritarian note that we mentioned earlier,
Right.
it specifically said, look for ways that AI could be used for control. And it just makes you think.
Yes, because you can see the possibilities there.
And the book does touch on that a little bit, how AI could empower authoritarian regimes.
It does.
And they even give the example of China's social credit system as a real-world example of how this technology is already being used for social control.
It's a very chilling example.
Yeah. Can you explain that a little bit for people who might not know?
Yeah, so basically imagine a system that tracks everything you do.
Okay.
Your finances, your social media activity, even minor infractions like jaywalking,
Oh, wow.
and then assigns you a score that determines your access to things like loans or travel.
That's crazy.
It's happening in China right now.
It's like a Black Mirror episode come to life.
It is, and it's not hard to imagine how that kind of system powered by increasingly sophisticated AI could be used to really stifle dissent and maintain control over a population.
Yeah, like full-on Big Brother.
Exactly, and that's just one example. Think about the potential for AI-powered surveillance, like facial recognition everywhere, and predictive policing algorithms that are used to monitor citizens' movements, conversations, even their online activity.
It's like they're watching everything we do.
And the book argues that this kind of AI-powered surveillance could be used not just to track people's actions, but also to predict and preempt any potential dissent.
So they're trying to stop it before it even starts.
Exactly. Imagine an AI system that flags individuals as potential threats based on their social media posts or their browsing history or even their emotional responses.
Gosh, that is really unsettling.
It is, because it raises serious questions about the future of individual freedom and privacy in this age of AI.
It really does, and it all goes back to that fundamental quotient of truth. Like, if an authoritarian regime is using AI to control the flow of information, to manipulate perceptions, to silence any dissenting voices, what happens to truth.
Right, does it even exist anymore?
It's almost like we're entering this era where truth itself becomes a battleground.
With AI as the weapon of choice.
Exactly. And in that kind of environment, how do we even begin to have a functioning society?
It's a question that I've been thinking about a lot lately.
Me too.
Yeah.
It's something that I think we all need to start grappling with, like, right now.
Before it's too late?
Exactly. Before it's too late. So one thing that the book does highlight is this tension between the benefits of AI and the risks that it poses.
Right.
And all three authors seem to agree that we need new ethical frameworks and institutions to govern AI development and deployment.
Absolutely. They even suggest something like an AI Magna Carta.
Whoa.
Yeah, to establish some global norms and prevent an AI arms race where countries are just competing to develop the most powerful and potentially dangerous AI systems.
So basically they're saying we need some guardrails.
We need some rules of the road.
Yeah, because otherwise it's just going to be a free-for-all.
And it's going to be a race to the bottom.
And who knows what could happen.
Exactly.
It's a complex issue with no easy answers.
It really is.
But I think one thing that's clear is that we can't just sit back and let things unfold without any kind of guidance or oversight.
We have to be proactive.
We have to be proactive. And I think this conversation is so crucial because we need to be thinking about these issues as a society.
Yeah.
Before we reach a point where the technology has just totally outpaced our ability to control it.
It's moving so fast.
It is moving so fast.
Yeah.
And I think it's especially important for everyday people to understand what's at stake here.
Absolutely.
Because ultimately it's our lives, our freedoms, our future that are on the line.
It's true. And the more we understand about these risks, the better equipped we'll be to advocate for responsible AI development.
Yes,
And make sure that this powerful technology is used for good, not for ill.
exactly. All right, so I think on that note, we should probably pause here and take a little break.
Sounds good.
And when we come back, we can dive even deeper into this whole question of AI and the perception of truth in society.
I can't wait.
Yeah. All right, so stay with us. We'll be right back after a quick word from our sponsors. So, as we're talking about all of this, one thing that keeps coming back to me is this idea of transparency. Or, I guess, like the lack of it when it comes to a lot of these AI systems.
Yeah, that's a really crucial point. You
Yeah.
know, the book's authors really emphasize the need for greater transparency in AI, especially when it's being used by governments.
Right, because if we don't know how these systems are making decisions, how can we trust them?
How can we trust them, and how can we hold those in power accountable?
Yeah.
You know, if those decisions turn out to be unfair or biased or even harmful.
Exactly. And I think that's where the real danger lies, especially in the context of authoritarianism.
Mm-hmm.
Like if a government is using AI to, say, identify potential dissidents or make decisions about who gets access to certain resources, we need to know how those decisions are being made.
Absolutely. And that's where the whole concept of algorithmic transparency comes in.
Yeah.
The idea is that we need to be able to understand how these algorithms work,
Right.
what data they're trained on, and what biases might be baked into their decision-making processes.
I've heard some people argue that revealing these algorithms would compromise intellectual property or even national security.
Yeah.
Is that a legitimate concern?
It's a valid point, and the book does acknowledge those concerns.
All right.
But they also make a really compelling case for why transparency, even if it's limited, is essential to maintaining public trust and preventing AI from being used for harmful purposes.
So how do we strike that balance?
Right.
How do we ensure transparency without, jeopardizing legitimate interests?
That is the million-dollar question, and it's something that policymakers, technologists, ethicists are grappling with right now.
Mhm.
The book suggests a few potential paths forward, like creating independent oversight bodies
Mm.
to audit AI systems or developing standardized methods for assessing and mitigating bias in algorithms.
Those are good ideas, but I imagine there's going to be a lot of pushback from those who benefit from the current lack of transparency.
Oh, undoubtedly. But the more we understand about the potential risks of AI, the more empowered we are to demand greater transparency and accountability.
So it's about public awareness
Yes.
and engagement.
Public awareness and engagement are crucial.
So you're saying that educating ourselves about these issues is one of the most important things we can do.
Absolutely. We need to be having these conversations about AI, about its potential benefits and its potential dangers.
Yeah.
We need to be asking tough questions about who controls this technology, how it's being used, and what impact it's having on our lives and our societies.
It's almost like AI literacy is becoming a fundamental skill
It really is.
we all need to develop if we want to navigate this increasingly complex world.
I think you're right. Just like we teach kids about media literacy and digital citizenship, we need to start educating them and ourselves about the ethics of AI, the
Mhm.
dangers of algorithmic bias, and the importance of critical thinking in an age where information can be so easily manipulated.
Yeah, and it's not just about kids, like
Yeah.
adults need this education too.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Everyone needs to be aware of this.
And it kind of brings us back to that note we mentioned earlier, urging us to consider how AI could be used for control.
Right.
It's a reminder that we can't just focus on the technical aspects of AI.
We can't just be dazzled by the shiny new technology.
Exactly. We also need to be thinking about the social and political and ethical implications.
Because if we're not careful, AI could end up being used to reinforce existing power structures
Right.
and exacerbate inequalities.
It could lead to a world where those in power have even greater control over our lives, our thoughts, even our perceptions of reality.
It's a chilling thought.
It is. But I think the book also offers a glimmer of hope.
Okay.
The authors seem to believe that if we're proactive, if we engage in these difficult conversations,
Mm.
and if we work together to establish clear ethical guidelines and regulatory frameworks, we can still harness the power of AI for good.
I agree. It's not about rejecting AI altogether.
No.
It's about making sure that its development and deployment are guided by human values, by a commitment to fairness, transparency, and accountability.
It's a tall order.
It is.
But I think it's a challenge that we're capable of meeting if we work together.
I think so too.
And it's a challenge we absolutely must meet if we want to create a future where AI empowers humanity rather than enslaves it.
Sad.
And I think that's a great segue into the next part of our conversation where we can delve deeper into some of the specific challenges and potential solutions related to AI and the perception of truth in society.
Looking forward to it.
And we're back, folks, continuing our deep dive into this whole world of AI and truth and knowledge. And before the break, we were talking about transparency and accountability when it comes to these powerful AI systems, especially the ones being used by governments.
Right. And that leads us to another really important piece of this whole puzzle, the challenge of algorithmic bias.
Okay, so for our listeners who maybe aren't as familiar with this term, can you break down what we mean by algorithmic bias?
Sure. So basically, algorithmic bias means that AI systems can sometimes make decisions or produce outcomes that are unfair to certain groups of people.
Okay.
And this happens when the algorithms are trained on data that's already biased, data that reflects existing prejudices in our society.
So it's not that the AI is like intentionally being discriminatory.
Right.
It's more like it's learning from data that already contains those biases.
Exactly. It's like if you were teaching a kid something, but you were only giving them one side of the story, they'd develop a skewed understanding of the world.
Right.
Same thing with AI. If it's only learning from biased data, it's going to perpetuate those biases in its own decision making.
And because these AI systems are often so complex, it can be really hard to spot and fix those biases.
Oh, absolutely. It's like trying to find a needle in a haystack sometimes.
Yeah.
And this is where that lack of transparency that we were talking about earlier becomes even more of a problem.
Right, because if we don't know how these algorithms are making decisions, we can't effectively challenge or correct those biases.
Yeah. Exactly. And this is where the authors of The Age of AI really raise a red flag.
Okay.
They argue that algorithmic bias has the potential to make existing inequalities even worse
Oh, wow.
and create a world where opportunities aren't given fairly based on things like race, gender, or socioeconomic status.
It's like we're at this crossroads with AI.
We really are.
We need to figure out how to make sure it's used to create a more just and equitable world.
Absolutely not one that just repeats the mistakes and biases of the past.
And I think that's why it's so important for everyone to be aware of these issues and have these conversations.
Yeah.
We need to be asking questions about how AI is being used,
We are.
who's benefiting from it, and who might be harmed by it.
And we need to demand more transparency and accountability from the people and companies developing and using these technologies.
We can't just be passive bystanders here.
No, we have to be active participants in shaping how AI develops and how it's used in our society.
We need to push for solutions like more diverse teams developing these systems.
Yes, absolutely.
And better ways to detect and fix bias in these algorithms.
And clear ethical guidelines that prioritize fairness and equity for everyone.
It's a big challenge, but it's one we have to face head on if we want AI to be a force for good in the world.
I couldn't agree more.
And I think this all circles back to that core question we started with.
About truth.
Yeah, what does it even mean for the future of truth and knowledge in a world that's increasingly shaped by AI?
It's a question that's going to keep challenging us as AI gets more and more sophisticated and integrated into our lives.
It's a question we're going to have to keep wrestling with, but I think if there's one key takeaway from today's deep dive, it's that we can't afford to just sit back and watch this all unfold.
We have to be informed, we have to be engaged, and we have to be willing to speak up for the values that we believe in.
Transparency, fairness, and a future where AI is used to help humanity, not hurt it.
Well said.
So to all our listeners out there, we'll leave you with this final thought. In an age where information can be so easily manipulated, what does it mean to be truly informed? What steps can you take to make sure that the information you're consuming is accurate and unbiased and trustworthy? It's a question we all need to be asking ourselves as we navigate this increasingly complex and AI-driven world.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, everyone. We hope it's given you some food for thought and maybe even inspired you to learn more about this amazing and rapidly changing field.
And we'll see you next time for another deep dive into the most pressing issues of our time.